Greetings and welcome to another episode of Veterans of the Cedar Valley. My name is Tom Haggerty and I'll be your host for this show. In previous shows, we've been bringing you veterans from different conflicts such as World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan, and then also veterans issues, shows about veterans issues that people were interested in. Today in our studio, we're tickled to have with us Terry Helmrich, who is an Air Force veteran and worked on the SR71, which was one of the fastest airplanes in the Air Force or in the world. So welcome to the studio, Terry. Thank you for being here. And tell me a little bit about your background, Terry, where you were born and raised.
I was raised in Manchester, Iowa, 21 years on the farm. Went to Manchester High School, which is West Delaware now. Took metals class, and then I went through Hawkeye Tech for tool and die. And NOM was going strong, so I basically had to enlist somewhere, so I did a delayed enlistment and was in the Air Force for 4 years. After that, I took classes at UNI and National Radio Institute for Computers and Robotics.
But I'm glad to hear that you joined the Air Force. It was nice to have you with us. What years did you serve in the Air Force?
70 to 74.
Okay. And then you went to basic training where?
Lackland.
Same place, yeah. We
Right.
all went to Lackland Airplane Patch. I call it Lackland Airplane Patch, I'm sorry. But
Yeah.
it was in San Antonio, Texas.
Right.
And you graduated from basic training and then did you go on to tech school from there?
No, I took a bypass test for a machinist. And machinist is 6 months, tool and die is 2 years. I aced the course, went direct duty assignment to Beale Air Force Base.
Okay, where is Beale Air Force Base?
Beale Air Force Base is about 50 miles north of San Francisco, right near the towns of Marysville, California, and Yuba City.
And why were you sent to Beale Air Force Base?
Due to my expertise as a machinist.
Okay, and then what were you going to be assigned to do at Beale Air Force Base?
Basically, maintenance of the aircraft as far as anything sheet metal, move screws, manufacture extra parts as needed,
And that
modify.
was on the SR71?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
What was the SR71?
Secret reconnaissance plane, one of the fastest one ever built on slide rule technology.
Wow. And so was it considered a spy plane?
Right.
And then
Right.
where was this plane used? Where did it fly over?
About everywhere you can possibly imagine, because we flew over Russia, we flew over North and South Korea, and Nam.
Were we inside the airspace of those countries?
We was in the free airspace. The cameras come out and tilt sideways to scan certain areas.
And the plane was a very fast plane, right?
Right.
Did it take off from Beale Air Force Base?
Yes, 9 of them we had there would take off from that area.
You had 9 of these?
9 of them there.
Okay. Before the plane took off, what did you and the crew have to do? Maintenance crew and other crew members?
We had to make sure the pre-flight took 6 hours to set this thing up. And going through everything possible on that to make sure it was basically so it could get off the ground in a sense. We had Buicks that were underneath there to fire the engines up, get them up to a certain RPM. Then we had JP7 fuel, because JP4 would vaporize at certain speeds. And then in order to ignite it, we had to put in triethylbromine.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because I was going to ask you that next.
Right. Basically, that comes in contact with oxygen, you got a big ball of fire. It's the only way we could light this stuff, because JP7, you could throw a match in, it wouldn't light.
So you used the term spin up the engine.
Right.
And then were you standing there, or
No.
were you anywhere near it when it
No,
was?
we was in the machine shop at the time when they're firing these things up.
So, and I say this as a joke, you didn't squirt lighter fluid in the engine
No.
to fire it off. You squirted this
Chemical.
Say it again.
triethyl bromine.
Okay, and then that started the engines up, and then before the plane took off, did it warm up to a certain speed?
No, it basically, we get the engines fired up, the pilots are in there, and then they'd bring it out of the aircraft, out of the hangar, then would take off once it got clearance.
And the pilots, you said pilots, there's two people, two pilots to the plane. One is the pilot, and one is serving as what?
Flight control. He had all the nomenclature to where they had to go to keep the pilot informed of where they're at, what's going on, fuel consumption as necessary.
So that would be like a radar?
In a sense, yes.
Okay. And he kept the plane going straight over what country
Right.
it would go to.
Right.
What kind of outfits did the pilots have to put on?
They had a pressurized suit that they had to wear because up at that height, if you're not pressurized, your blood would actually boil and you would die in the process.
And how high did the SR71 go?
80,000 feet up, about the last atmosphere up there.
And is that in miles, or 80,000 feet is how far?
Your satellites are 250 miles up, so we're in the last atmosphere up there.
Wow. And did the pilots have to suit up like hours ahead of time, like you had to get the plane prepared for takeoff?
They do a complete physical first, and then they put them in the suit, pressurize it, make sure everything is okay before they brought the pilots out, and they put them into the aircraft, and then close the cockpits on them.
And then when the plane was getting ready to take off, and it's taking off, how fast is that plane going down the runway?
From 0 to 200 miles an hour in about 40 seconds.
Okay, and then once it gets up in the air, I couldn't remember what Mach 1 or Mach 2 was, but the plane would fly, the fastest it could fly was what speed?
Cruising was Mach 3.
And what was that?
About 2,200 mile an hour.
And then that was the fastest it could go?
No. Record, I think, was 3.7. I think it's the fastest it ever flew, and that would be without flying a missile.
Okay, and the speeds are on the screen at the time, but as you mentioned that we would fly over countries like North Korea, Russia, Vietnam, and when we're flying over those countries, was anybody shooting at the plane?
Oh yeah.
And what were they shooting?
SAM missiles.
Surface-to-air missiles?
Right, and we could outrun those.
So no matter how many they fired at the SR-71,
right.
Did they ever hit one?
No. We could sit there and run a straight flight, taking our pictures, and then basically turn off a certain deal, and the missile would basically lose its capability to turn.
And when it was going that fast and they fired a SAM, was that because the plane was over the country?
In free airspace, basically, what's
Okay.
going on, but they detected somebody was there because that plane had the radar issue of a 1 foot square cube.
And you mentioned that the cameras could tilt.
Right.
And then how far away from a country or wherever they were flying over would those cameras be able to take photographs or whatever it was, and how clear were they?
They're very intricate pictures and stuff. If you look at a video or something, you see them using a magnifying glass to get down to see those pictures on that, and they could pull those things up and read license plates and everything else.
I was going to say, you at wherever they're flying at and however fast they're flying at, the picture of somebody's license plate on the ground would come out real clear.
It's just a little fuzzy, but you can make it out.
Wow. And how long flying over a country was the plane taking pictures?
In about 8 hours, they could do about 80,000 miles.
they would fly over a country for 8 hours, so they'd go down and come back,
Right.
and still have to fight the surface-to-air missiles.
Right.
If they missed the first time, you gave them another shot, or whatever, you know. But anyway, tell me a little bit about the plane itself when it's flying that fast.
Surface, or the friction of the air over the outside of the plane would reach about 1100 degrees on the outside, so it's kind of glowing, kind of dull red. And then in order to be able to do that, aluminum would lose its integrity, so they had to go with titanium. Titanium weighs about 1.5 times the amount of aluminum.
How much did an SR71 cost to make?
By the time we bought the material and built the plane, about $32 million
A piece.
a piece.
And
32 of them would cost a little over $1 billion to build all of them.
and that's how many total SRs?
32 of them.
And when you were at Beale Air Force Base, how many did you have?
We had nine of them there.
So you had millions of dollars worth of aircraft equipment sitting there. Were there any other planes at Beale, or was it strictly the SR?
We had the T-38s, which is a trainer. We had the KC-135, which is a flying gas tank. That's what they used to refuel them with.
We're going to get to the flying gas station here in our second half, but
Okay.
When you were at Beale Air Force Base, did you just walk on the base and start working on the plane, or did you have to get a secret clearance?
Yeah, we had to get a secret clearance. They go back to the day you're born almost, your parents, where they were born and all this stuff, all the background checks, and it's 2.5 weeks before you get your clearance.
And
Time to go through all that stuff.
did they come back here to Cedar Falls or Manchester and talk to your neighbors about?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
They're very, very quiet on some of that stuff.
Well, we've arrived at our halfway point on our show, Terry. It's been very interesting so far, and I invite our viewers to come back for the second half of this show, and please come back. Welcome back to the second half of Veterans of the Cedar Valley. My name's Tom Haggerty. I'll be your host for the rest of this show. In our studio today, we're tickled to have an Air Force veteran named Terry Helmricks, who worked on the SR71 spy plane, fastest plane that we had in the Air Force. Terry, when the plane came back from its mission of flying over Vietnam or North Korea or Russia or wherever it flew over, from North Korea, how long did it take to get back to Beale Air Force Base in where, California?
California. Basically, every 90 hours or 90 minutes, they had to refuel.
Okay.
So you're looking at that situation.
So if it needed gas, after it took off from California, how long was it before it had to be refueled.
They had just enough fuel to get it off the ground, because a full load of fuel, it couldn't leave the ground. They get up, and about 15 minutes that they'd turn on their beacon so that the KC-135 could find them, and they would pump 1,000 gallons a minute into that thing.
And the KC-135 was a gas
Flying
station.
gas tank, right.
And how much gas did they carry?
I have no idea.
Enough to fill up the SR71, right? So when the fuel was being transferred into the SR71, how long did that take from the connection to the end of the fueling?
12 minutes.
And how many gallons of fuel did they get?
1,200.
What did an SR71 fly on? What kind of gas?
JP7.
Which means?
It's a higher flash point fuel. JP4 is your normal jet engine fuel, but that stuff vaporized at about Mach 2.
Okay, so the plane takes off from Beale Air Force, and you said within 15 minutes or so, it has to be refueled again.
Right.
After the refueling, how long can it go to wherever it's headed?
To kind of put it in layman's terms, it can go from LA, California to Washington, D.C. in 1 hour.
Wow, on that load of gas?
On that load of gas.
And then, say from Beale Air Force Base to going over Vietnam, how many fueling stations are in the air for the plane?
We had a couple in Okinawa that would fly over those areas, which is a lot closer to that zone.
Wow, and so it really had to be coordinated. So, okay,
True.
now we're on our way back, and the SR71 has taken video and film and pictures as close up as people's license plates on the ground.
Right.
And those pictures come back all the way back to Beale Air Force Base. When that plane lands, another section takes the film and will develop it. But I'm very interested in when you are walking on the plane. You told me you had to wear special socks.
Right. We have what they call wing socks, because as you walk in the plane, any dust on the plane adds another 30 degrees to the temperature of that plane.
So when the plane lands, do you climb right up on it right away?
No.
Oh, how long is it?
If you had tennis shoes on, they'd melt right to the plane.
Oh my goodness. And so how long do you wait to get on the plane?
I'd say about half an hour.
And then walking on the plane in these socks, you didn't feel the heat or anything, did you?
No.
It had cooled down?
Right.
And I forgot to ask you, when the plane is in the air, is it making sonic booms?
Yeah. At Mach 3, you'll end up with 3 sonic booms, one right behind the other if you're close enough to it.
And
Otherwise you get a normal sonic boom like from your F4 Phantoms and stuff like that.
And those of us on the ground, we would hear the boom, but it wouldn't rattle like an earthquake.
No.
Okay. How long did it take you to service the SR71 again for another flight?
Basically, they give us a phone call as if we needed to go out and they replace the panel. We had to go out and remove screws, drill holes wherever is necessary, manufacture new parts for it if possible, if they needed it. It depends on what was needed of us to be out there on that status.
And since this was considered a spy plane, and the film was taken of the country we were flying over, what did we do with that film? They processed it?
That would go to a secret processing area where they would look at it and then let the generals and stuff know what's happening in that area so they could create a plan of attack of what's happening.
But they had to get back to California and
California or the other bases and stuff.
Okay.
Because there's more than one base.
And tell me again, how much did one SR71 cost to make?
About $32 million.
And out at Beale Air Force Base, you had 9 of them.
Right.
And how many total did the U.S. government make of the SR-71s?
32 of them.
And how long were they in service again?
'64 to 1998.
And the pictures we've been showing, the plane is black. Is that painted
Right.
black, or is that the material?
When it first came out of the hangar, it's a robin egg blue. When you fly it for the first time, the paint turns black.
Why is that?
It's heat-sensitive paint and radar absorption. It's highly classified.
Did they have to repaint the plane every time it came back
No.
then? Oh, it always
No.
stayed black
It always
then?
stayed black.
Okay. And then what would wear out on the SR71?
The wheels, every so often, every landing, they'd have to redo wheels about every fifth or sixth landing. We'd end up usage bearings in the engines. Sometimes we get those in to destroy those because they was flying at such high RPMs and stuff.
Now you answered my question earlier that countries that shot up surface-to-air missiles, they never got one of the planes.
No, we
Did
never
one of the
lost a
planes-
single one.
Did one of the planes ever have to crash land or come down because of maintenance or mechanical, whatever
Nope,
problems?
not that we know of.
None that you worked on.
Right.
Okay, so
Right.
that's good. That's a good record. And again, you went to Beale Air Force Base right out of basic training at Lackland Air Force Base,
Direct duty assignment. I had 10 days to collect everything and get out there.
and that was because of your knowledge of what? You passed the test.
Tool and die background, did a bypass test for a machinist and aced the thing. You talk about answering a lot of questions on that one.
And did you ever fly the
No,
SR71?
no,
Did you ever get to fly in it?
nope,
Okay, so it was a pilot and a co-pilot.
right.
And how long were they stationed, for example, at a duty station? You know,
I have no clue.
and then did the planes move around, like from Beale Air Force Base to Kelly Air Force Base, or?
They might have. I have no idea.
And tell me again how fast the SR71 could go, the top speed.
Cruising was Mach 3. 3.2 is pushing it a little bit. The fastest it ever flew, as far as I know, was 3.7.
Okay, and the pilots were wearing special suits again,
Pressurized
similar to astronaut
Right,
suits, and
right.
and did those suits ever fail on
No.
a pilot?
No, they tested those long before the pilots ever got into them.
Okay, were the pilots go on to become astronauts, or?
I can't answer that.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Okay, and then you were at Beale Air Force Base for the entire tour of duty?
No, I was there 1 year.
And then went to another station with
Where
SR?
I went to Germany for 2.5 years, and then I was at Myrtle Beach. So I worked on other planes other than the SR-71s.
Okay, and one of the things I've neglected to ask you about is the SR-71 still in existence?
They have them at various different museums right now. The closest one for people from Iowa would be go to Omaha, Nebraska. Just the other side of that, there's a SAC museum there. You'll see one stationed there. There's about 6 in California, and there's other places around. They may have a picture of where they're all stationed at. You go online and type in locations of all the SR-71s where they're at now, and it'll pull up tire sheets.
Is there one at the Smithsonian?
Could be.
And that would be in the, not the Air Force section of the Smithsonian, but where they have all the
Right.
planes and stuff. And so we didn't sell the SR-71s to any other countries.
No.
Did any other countries have the SR-71?
No. Highly classified.
Highly classified. So, and I asked you in advance if some of the things we could talk about were top secret, and you mentioned that as long as they're on the internet and available for
Right.
publics, that
Right.
we wouldn't have the Secret Service coming knocking at our door
True.
after we
True.
finish this TV. Well, I want to know, did you train people that replaced you in your job?
We had a few we had to kind of brief on what's going on and stuff, give them briefings. So we had one guy had a top secret. We had to bring him down to a secret clearance so he could do various other things. He knew more than what the rest of us did, but
About the plane?
about whatever he had.